Get excited because today I have Portia Jackson on the show, certified financial planner. And if you haven't been introduced to Portia yet, I am thrilled to be the one that introduces you. Portia is a rocket scientist turned finance entrepreneur. Yes, you did hear that correctly. She's an actual rocket scientist that took a pivot and dove into entrepreneurship. She helps entrepreneurs go after and achieve what we're all aiming for, a wealthy and fulfilled life. Today, we're going to be talking about 3 ways to organize your finances as a new entrepreneur. Hi, Portia. So happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you went from rocket scientist to entrepreneur. That's a huge jump.
Yeah. So I've always loved math and science and like data and details and like problem solving. So I became an engineer and I also love teaching. So I was like, I'll just be a professor. So I went through and got my PhD. But about halfway through, I realized I don't want to be a professor. I'll just go ahead and get a job. I'll just finish this because I'm already here. Why not? So working in corporate for about 5 years, and I just realized I was just meant for something more at that time. Mm-hmm. And so it was really random. I was at work one day and was just kind of feeling like the work blues. It's like I'm still in my 20s and I'm like dreading Monday morning already. Not because of the corporation and my people. They were great. It was just the, I guess, monotony of it, I guess.
Yeah, I get
for lack
that.
of better words.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up Googling how to make $5 million. I don't know why. I don't know why that number. Yeah, I know. It was just random, right? So I did that. And Pat Flynn's podcast came up, Smart
Mm-hmm.
Passive Income. And that was my little, Alice in Wonderland door into like the online entrepreneur world. And it's just gone bananas since then.
I love that.
So, but in the midst of that, it's kind of like 2 tracks. But I was always teaching personal finance classes for my church, my sorority, and I just really enjoyed it. It was just kind of like a hobby. And even growing up, those were the books I read were like books about money, books about like personal, like development type of thing.
Yeah.
And so people were like, well, if you're taking the classes, you might as well just become certified and, take the tests and all the things that go with that. And I was like, all right, sure. Why not? And so part of that process, though, is actually getting the years of experience. So I couldn't do that with my full-time job as an engineer. So that's why I ended up leaving the aerospace engineering, rocket science world and going into full-time financial services. And there are definitely lots of twists and turns along the way as I started to figure out where my place was in that world, because it wasn't with a big broker dealer, helping people who have 12 million make 13 million. It was more about the people who don't have access to this information and how can I help them? And so long story short, became a financial wellness coach at a few different Fortune 500 companies, got my experience, became certified, merged all of my online expertise because to make up for that drop in income from leaving engineering, I actually started a digital marketing agency. And so built it up to multiple 6 figures, smushed all of this stuff together. And now I have Wealthy and Fulfill where I kind of put all that together. So
That's
long
amazing.
and winding road. I feel like my resume is like 30 pages long and looks like a plate of spaghetti, but nothing was wasted. Everything along the journey is being used now to help my clients. And it's really fulfilling.
That's so cool. I love that you said you found the Alice in Wonderland door and you kind of wound up in this path. And also, who has finance as a hobby? I think that is, has anybody asked you that? Because I feel like that's amazing in itself. I've never heard that before. I've only heard it as a career path, not as a hobby.
Yeah, well, I just was interested, right? Because my dad used to work for the city of Chicago. He did a lot of like the planning. Like he would see like the plans for like these huge buildings before they got built. And he was always just like, this is kind of what wealthy people do. They built real estate. And so I was just it always seemed like a them and an us type of thing. So I'm like, well, we're doing okay, but how can I be like one of them type of thing. And so I was just really interested. I'm like, well, I learned about real estate. I think I bought my first mutual fund when I was like 17 from like a door hanger on my door. It was just a natural thing. Like I can even go back and remember I had like my own envelope system when I was like 5. I think I read it in like some, I don't know, kindergarten book about money or something. And it was just something that, when you can look back and you can see clues along your life, like, oh, I've always done that. That was my thing. That's just how I was wired. Like I was just always like that.
That's awesome, though. I mean, I wish I had been wired like that when I was little. Good on your parents for bringing you a book whenever you were little about finance.
They would just take me to a library if we remember what those relics are. But yeah, and I just love books. Like I remember getting those and totally dating myself here, but those Scholastic Book Club flyers. I don't know.
I love those.
Right?
Yeah.
My mom was just like,
nerd.
hey, you read them. So if you're going to read it, I'll get you whatever you want. So I literally was just like, when they delivered those, it was just like Christmas. It was the best thing ever.
Yeah, I am still a book nerd, but back in the day, Scholastic Book Fair edition.
Yes.
I actually read all the books in my library for kids that my mom ran a book drive to get more books for the library. That's how nerdy I am. So I'm right there with you.
The same. So we're geeking out together here. And then Amazon.com came and my husband's like, please stop buying books. But I'm like, I read them. Like, I just love, I'm like, oh, a brand new book. Like, what's the possibilities of like what's inside? But now I'm just letting my complete geek flag fly here. But that's me. So.
But hey, that's why we're new friends. And
yes,
we can talk about books. That's amazing. But how old were you whenever it clicked in your brain? You're like, well, these people are making $12 million, but other people are helping them get to 13. What about me? Was there a point where you kind of had that realization it was possible?
Yeah. So through reading the books, and I mean, I was the one that was still going to like hotel seminars about like those late night, like make money with real estate type of things. I was just so curious. I was just soaking up as much as I could. Some stuff I soaked up was great. Some not so much, but a lessons learned either way. Right.
Totally.
So I was just always into that. Yeah. I was in the investment club when I went to, Michigan and all these things. I could not get enough information. So it wasn't until I think that realization that, what's possible for them is possible for me. That came through a lot of like the personal development books and things that I was reading, really into like mindset stuff. Didn't know it was called that. It was just the whole, Think and Grow Rich was a snooze fest for me, honestly. I know it has a lot of great lessons, but it just wasn't my style. Yeah. But I knew it had something there. So reading books similar to that, I was just like, anything is possible. But I had to figure out how to make that possible for me. And then when I left my engineering job to go into your traditional financial advisor role, where it's like all about selling, less about actual planning, educating, that's how I was like, this is not for me. Like, this is not why I did this. Like, this wasn't for the money. It was for I wanted to love what I did because I made good money as an engineer. Like, they're paid pretty well. So it wasn't about that for me. And so like 8 months, I was just like, no, thank you. At all. Because I was very clear on why I made the transition. You don't leave a well-paying job with 2 kids to just be like, oh, let me just see how it works. Like, it wasn't for that. Not. It was like, I meant to do more in life. Let's go out and do more in life. And it wasn't cold calling people who didn't want me to call them.
Right. That's interesting. I love that you started out by realizing like there's a shift in your mindset and you can achieve this and you just kind of went after it. I think that's the hardest part. I think in your life, whenever you don't realize it until you do start surrounding yourself with things like positive and success-driven books, because so many people don't think it's possible to go, look up the 5 million mark.
Yeah. And I didn't know how, right? And it, as I, do more and more of just the looking into it, the how isn't really my part. Like getting clear on why I want something, what I want, why I want it. When it happens and how it happens is not my place. Like, I can only do so much. And then I have to, at that point, whatever people believe in, for me, it's God. But at that point, I have to kind of let God do, what God does. Like, if I look back at the things that have just like, whoa, how did that happen? There's no way I could have planned that. And that's when we have to kind of like learn to just like surrender and let go. It's like, and that doesn't mean sit on your couch and like, oh, $5 million be delivered to my door. It's not that. It's like, okay, I know the next 3 steps. So I'm going to do those steps with excellence in the best way I can do it. And then the next step will appear, or this connection will happen or something. So it's not passive, which is where I think like The Secret got it wrong. And I'm not like a huge fan of The Secret, but I think people were just kind of walking around like, yeah, I'm just going to get this really nice car. I'm like, doing what? Like, you're not doing anything. So like, I think people are missing like that action step. And the other thing helped too, because I am just still a recovering perfectionist. I wanted everything to be right before I got it out there. But it was only by getting it out there did I realize, oh yeah, this is working. Do more of that. Or this is not really working for me. We're not doing this anymore. But it wasn't from, as much as I would love for it to be, it wasn't from having like this perfectly color coded like Google Doc of like my plan for life. Because it never happens that way. Like, never.
No, it doesn't. If you want to tell God a joke, tell him your plans, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
But it always works out for the best. We just don't see it immediately, typically.
Exactly. Yeah. We can always look back and be like, oh, you know what? That actually was a better plan than mine or something like that. But,
Yeah.
and yeah, even with like people, I'll look at someone because I also really had to work through comparisonitis and looking at like, because when I came online, it was like the era of everybody's making 6 figures in 6 months. And I'm like, oh, what's so special about 6 months? And it made me feel like I was behind or that I was missing something or I wasn't doing something right, that I had to buy another course or something to be like the magic bullet, or I have to work with this coach because they're going to reveal the secrets. And it's like, it wasn't any of that. It was like, people will tell you what people want to tell you. You don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. And now working with entrepreneurs with their finances, I've seen a lot of behind the scenes that don't match what is in the newsfeed. So I just thought that was important for me because I'm just like, let's just stay focused, stay in my lane, do what I know I'm supposed to do and adjust based off my plan, not what I see everybody else doing. Because that's when I started to get slowed down, bogged down, not really depressed, but just feeling like really anxious and just like, oh, man, I'm really missing something here. And I wasn't missing anything.
Yeah, it's hard to get past that comparisonitis. That's a good term for it.
Yeah.
Because it's everywhere. And you're right. I mean, not everybody is going to have the same path. Nobody does, really. So if you're comparing yourself to other people in that way, and you're also holding on to that perfectionism, that's a tough battle to face.
It was. I mean, it's definitely been a journey.
Yeah, for sure. Entrepreneurship, right?
Right.
So what would be the best first step for somebody starting their business when they're putting their financial ducks in a row?
First thing is get a separate business bank account. You do not want to commingle your business and your personal finances when you are running a business, because the seed you have in your hand today is going to grow into like a super big tree. And when you have a super big tree, people are going to sue you, like if an apple falls off and hits them on the head, or all sorts of things happen. And you don't want to build your business on an unsteady foundation. So get your business bank account, even if it only has $5 from you self-funding it, and just do everything from that. Separate credit cards, like separate your finances, because one, mentally, it's going to help you realize I have a legit business. Like when you get that business credit card in the mail and it has your business name on it, you're like, whoa, I'm like a baller now. Even again, if you only have $5 in your account. Yeah, it's just like
excited
so
when I got mine.
Affirming. Yeah, it's just something different. It's like, wow, like I'm like adulting right now, right? Like I'm businessing right now. And then, so that's like the emotional side. But then like legally, you literally do not want to mix your business and your personal funds together. Because let's fast forward the timeline 5 years. You're killing it in business. You're doing whatever your goal is. Let's say 100K months. If you have a client that's not happy with something that you did, and they decide to sue you, if they come in and they look that all your business and personal are all commingled, whatever you've built up on the personal side is now open season for the business part, because you have mixed them together and you haven't separated it, versus that unhappy client only being able to go after whatever you have in your business account. So you just, and tax-wise, like there's going to be things you can write off with taxes. And if you ever get, the A word audited, you don't want to have that big mess of having it all tangled together. So first step, get your business bank account, get your business credit card, and only use that for business purposes.
That's a good point. Now, with only using it for business purposes, I would say most people probably start their business by contributing their own personal money into their bank account.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So how do you properly balance when they're first starting out between the two, keeping it separate? I feel like there's got to be some sort of pro tip instead of commingling is your term. What is commingling, I guess?
So commingling means essentially you're mixing things together. So I have 3 little kids, right? And they love Play-Doh, which is now banned in my house because they always get it on my carpet. But imagine you have like a red tub of Play-Doh and you have a blue tub of Play-Doh, right? Like they put it on the table, they want to mix it together and make their little Play-Doh snakes and stuff. Well, now you have like purple Play-Doh. The Play-Doh has co-mingled. The things are together, and it's really hard to distinguish what's red, what's blue, because they've smushed it all together. It's the same thing with your finances. Now, one way you can fund your business and start your business without necessarily commingling is think of yourself as like a silent investor. So you might say, I'm starting my business with this $3,000 that I'm transferring from my personal account to my business account. and then you're growing from there. So it's all about keeping records. What I mean with commingling is if you're going out to dinner and you're calling it a business dinner, but you're using your personal credit card, you've commingled. If you are buying your first course or something like that with a personal credit card and you're not listing it as a business expense, you've commingled. However, if you're making a note of, actually, I transferred X amount from my personal account to fund the business, that's not commingling. You're now funding your business, and that's seen as two different things.
Mm-hmm. So really it's about documenting and making sure that it actually is used
absolutely.
for the intention.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you pay yourself then? Let's say you get a check from a client and you put it in your business bank account, like you should, because it's for your business.
Yep.
But you also want to get paid. What would be the proper handling of that?
Yeah, no, you definitely want to get paid from your business. So it depends on what, where you live, your state, your country, whatever. But eventually you want to get to the point where you are setting up some type of legal entity. Again, that's going to protect you legally, but it also helps you financially. So for example, and this is not financial or legal advice, but I live in California. I have an S corporation. As an S corporation, my money flows through the corporation, and I eventually I pay myself as an employee, and that's how that's how the money gets transferred. I use a service called Gusto, Gusto. So in addition to setting up your business bank accounts, your credit cards, you also eventually want to use or you want to get incorporated, depending on what is best for your state, your taxes, legal reasons. Legal and tax are the things you have to consider. Usually it's a S corporation or what's called an LLC, limited liability corporation or company. And you can also be an LLC taxed as an S corp. That's why this is the point where you want to go and get your own legal and tax advisor to help you get this set up and determine which structure is best for you. This is not like I heard having a Nevada corporation is best, but I live in, Tennessee or something. Don't go by what you see on TV. Like, this is where you really want to get that individual advice, because it's one of the things it's that firm foundation for your business. You want to get this part right because everything else is going to be built on top of that. But essentially that's how you end up paying yourself, is through your business paying you, just like if you worked at McDonald's or Coca-Cola or something.
Right. So you are enlisted as an employee, even though you're the owner, which you are an employee, but it's just that technicality there. Now, are there specific must-haves or non-compromisable steps that you recommend entrepreneurs take whenever they're organizing their finances?
Yeah. So I would say the first step is to get those foundations in place that we just talked about. So your bank accounts, your legal structure, how you're going to get paid. The second part is to actually understand what I call your KPIs, your key performance indicators. So within your budget, you need to know, based off your business type, what numbers are you shooting for? So whether you're an e-com store, a coach, consultant, you have like an actual like brick and mortar store, you need to know how much should I be spending on advertising versus education versus overhead expenses versus having a team, because those are going to be a little bit different. Typically, coaches and course creators have very high margins because they don't have to spend a lot on like a team, because it's pretty much automated and delivered. Whereas if you are selling like a done for you type of service, you're going to have higher overhead in regards to, let's say, a sales team or something, if you're at that point where you're scaling. So knowing and understanding what those numbers are will really help you at the beginning. That way you're not just out here like, I thought it was totally normal to spend 80% of my budget on advertising. It's like, no, that's too much.
That's 80%?
Bring it back. Yeah. You just never know, because people are like, well, I'm growing. I want to get out there as fast as possible. I'm like, yes, you do. But you also want to be able to pay your team, not go into massive debt building your business, which sounds great when the business is bringing in money, but what happens when things take a turn? So building it right from the get-go, when you first start, and knowing kind of like that framework is really going to be beneficial.
Right. That's great. Yeah. If you're an entrepreneur looking for a community of like-minded go-getters, I have an invitation for you. I may be a little biased here, but the Curate Your Success Insider Entrepreneur community is where it's at, and I would love for you to be a part of it. When I first took the leap into entrepreneurship, I was looking for a community too. That's why I created a space for entrepreneurs to be able to network, trade advice, and to provide opportunities for collaborations and business promo. Plus, you'll have access to my podcast Insider exclusives. Did I mention it's free? just go to blairbrown.com/group to join in on the fun. I can't wait to see you inside. Now, oftentimes, whenever you're starting a business, you should set up a business plan. At least I recommend doing it. At some point, you need to have it. Now, how the heck does a business with no income yet predict their projected finances on a business plan? Because people always say, okay, even if you're just starting out, have this business plan. And then on that, you have to project these finances. And you're like, what are these ghost finances right now? How does somebody
those ghosts will become very real very soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, my biggest tip for that is that's why I really heavily promote working with like a coach or a consultant or being in a course where you can follow someone's path. Like success leaves clues. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. So if you're brand new and you're just starting out and you're starting a coaching business, work with a coach that has done or has established the type of business you want to do. Or, whether it's an e-com store, an agency, whatever. Why? Because they will be able to tell you if you are spending this much on advertising, or if you're charging this much per client, you need to be reaching out to this many people. They can lay out that plan for you and help you avoid some of the pitfalls that they had, as well as letting you know, like, okay, you're going to need an email service provider. That's, here are your choices. They go from free to extra expensive. You have 0 people on your list. You don't need extra expensive yet, right? Okay, you're going to need a web page builder or something. Again, it's like you might not want, Wix.com. You might want a WordPress site because you plan on being a blogger, right? So leveraging their experience and also getting an understanding, okay, but what actual tools do I need? And only the tools that I need versus anything extra.
Right. You can add that on later whenever you have profit.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you do that. So what about somebody who has huge aspirations and dreams? How can they align their finances with the life that they want? What recommendations do you have there?
Great question. So this is actually like step 2 of our wealthy and fulfilled process and path that we do. And so once we figure out someone's like wealth building superpower and their personality, then we sit them down and do what we call like our life wheel. So we break life into these different parts. So like financial, career, relationships, health, intellectual, emotional, like different parts of life. And I ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this area in your life right now? So let's say if we're talking about physical health, if they say I'm a 4 because I'm feeling a little lethargic, I know I eat out too much because I'm really busy, building this business, a little bit maybe bigger or smaller than I want to be, like whatever their thing is, it's like, great. Then tell me, what would be a level 10 in this area of your life for you? Like, what does perfect physical health look like for you? Right? So maybe they say, well, I'm eating like a plant-based diet or whatever, fill in the diet of choice. I don't really care. I'm working out regularly and I like it. I'm getting fresh air. I'm getting great sleep. I'm taking my supplements. I have a meal delivery service. So that way it takes, it conquers the I'm busy excuse or whatever. It's like, great. Okay. Now that we've listed out what a level 10 life looks like for you in this area, let's start to see how much does each of that cost, right? So how much is the meal delivery service? How much are your supplements? How much are those things? And then we start to work backwards. So if that's level 10 and you're level 4, what does a level 5 look like? What's the next best level? Is it joining a gym? Okay, great. How much is that gym membership with the personal trainer so you actually show up? And then we stair step it from 4 to 10 or whatever their number is to their level 10 life. We assign the dollar amount to whatever it takes to get to that level. And that's how we start working it into the budget. So once we have that budget, we're like, okay, well, we used to live off of $5,000 a month. Now, based off of our, level 5 on this one area, we might need $6,000 a month. Okay, where are we getting that extra $1,000? We stair step it back up to the business, because what's funding your personal life? Your business. So what do I need to do to create an extra $1,000 per month, or technically a little bit more because you have to account for taxes and overhead and things like that? But in general, what do I have to do? Is it adding X amount of people to my membership? Is it selling one more VIP day or a half of a VIP day or something like that? And so that's how we create and we bridge that gap from here's my vision board and my dream life over here to this is what I need to do in my business to funnel the money through to get the support that I need to actually live that life.
So you would say you start with analyzing the goals, right, of what you really want, and that level 10, and then start from where you're at, and then figure out how to bridge the gap.
Yeah. So basically figure out what does success look like for you in each of these different parts of your life? And everybody can divide it out however they want. See where you are now. Then figure out, what do I need to do to get from where I am now to where I want to be? Assign a dollar amount to that. So if you need that support to get you there, so you know how much it actually costs. So it's not just like, oh, one day I'm going to fly around the world. It's like, well, how much does it cost to fly around the world? Let's start to quantify this. So it goes from being a dream to a plan. And then once you have that number, you have to back it out into your business budget to know, well, how much do I have to earn in my business for that to flow into my personal life so that I can actually pay for the support I need to achieve the things I want to. That's my dream life.
Right. We want those rooftop cocktails.
That's right.
Those aren't cheap.
They're not. And especially not in LA. Those are like $20 a pop. So
I know. You're paying for the view. But yeah.
Yes.
So how long did it take you to figure that out in your life whenever you're like, oh, I have these huge aspirations. This is how I need to methodically figure it out. Did it take you a while, or did you always kind of have that in mind?
Based on the gazillion personality tests that I love to take, because again, I'm obsessed with like personality tests. Yeah. I realized that one of my core things is systemizing and organizing, bringing order to things. So I've always kind of in my mind done like this whole goal setting, like where am I now? Where do I want to be? And then, on the side, I was doing the personal finance, not on the side, but in addition to doing the personal finance. And I was like, wait, there's a break in the information of what people are teaching. They're teaching like plan your life, set your goals. They're teaching create a budget. But no one's like merging it together. And that's why I was like, wait a minute. Like,
where you come in.
Yeah, that's right. You can't just be out here like, oh, I have goals. It's like, well, that's great. But how are you actually going to achieve them? If people are like, oh, I want to fly first class. I'm like, great. How much does that cost? I don't know. That's a good question. It's like, well, how do you know when you're able to do it?
Yeah, get it together. Let's figure this out, right? That's awesome. So we're talking about all of these big dreams and aspirations and, wealth and fulfillment. So what does success mean to you, and how do you curate your success?
Oh, yes. Okay. So success to me means I'm able to do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it, how I want to do it in a way that feels good to me. So if I decide I want to take the afternoon off, I'm able to do that. If I want to have a travel nanny when we go travel, because I have 3 kids, I want to be able to do that and not have to answer to anyone. That's what success means to me. It means that if I see somebody having a need, or somebody struggling at the grocery store in the checkout line, and they have to put something back, that I can just go ahead and be like, "Don't worry, I have your whole cart." So just having that freedom to just do whatever is what we need. Like if we're at church and we see they're like, "Oh, we're having a building fund," or what was it on Sunday? They're having a summer camp for kids, and it's like they're raising money, and it's $280 per kid. It's like, it'd be cool to just be able to say, I have the freedom to just pay for 10 kids to go to camp. Or how many kids actually want to go? Well, we'll just cover the whole thing, like silently, because I'm not really into people like knowing what I'm doing. But to me, that's freedom, to just be able to do that.
Wow. And you're doing good with it too. That's really neat. I have chills. That's so cool. So we've established that we're both big nerds and we love to read. What book has influenced you the most as an entrepreneur?
Okay, so this is going to be crazy because I know most people are probably have like these really big, profound books. But my favorite book as an entrepreneur, and I have it because I keep it right in front of me in my office, is this kid's book. And it's called What Does It Mean to Be an Entrepreneur? And it's so good because it literally gets down to the nitty gritty of being an entrepreneur is serving others. And yes, you just get paid for it. It's not about the business plans. I mean, yes, that's part of it, but it's not about how much money you're making. It's not about how well your sales page is converting. At the end of the day, it's about serving people, understanding what people need, providing that need, making their life better, and you get paid in return. And it's literally like it's a kid's book. Like I can read it to like my girls. Like, I don't know if you can even see it, but it's like taking risks, right? Having the humility to learn from your mistakes. Like, it's just sometimes we just overcomplicate things that's just like adults. And it's like, let's just bring it back to the kid level. And it's such a good book.
Just the hard-hitting facts in that illustrated children's book.
Yeah. And it just reminds you, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. This is why I'm doing all of this.
But what I love about that is that you started reading, your parents gave you finance books, kid edition, when you were little, and it got you interested into finance, what you're doing now. Now with your kids, you're going to have this book. That'll be their staple. Like when they're adults, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I grew up on this book about entrepreneurship, which is not normal, by the way. But you're setting them up for their own career paths of being entrepreneurs. I think that is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. I mean, one of our goals with our girls, because I have 3 girls, is when they go off to college, it's going to be more so for building a network, because I do think it's a fabulous place to network versus like, this is like my only path in life. And I don't want to say only path, but that's how, I mean, I grew up where it's like, get good grades, go to a good school, you get a good job, and like you eventually die, right? I want them to have more options than that. I'm not saying don't go to college, but at the same time, it's like, this is not your end all be all. Like, we really want them to be financially independent by the time they turn 18. So when they go off to college, it's more of a, they already have that entrepreneurial spirit done. Like, they have their business, and college is more about networking, friends, the experience, finding people who can help you with your business, maybe learning something to start a new business, if that's what they want to do. Because again, entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart, and maybe everybody's not cut out for it, but we want them to be able to figure that out for themselves. That
is the coolest thing ever. One day, whenever I have kids, I'm going to get that book too. I'll be calling you up, be like, Portia, what's the name of that book again?
Oh yeah. We'll just let them know. Auntie Portia will send them the book.
I love that. Any last pro tips about setting up on a foundational level for entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say my last tip is really understand how you operate and view money, because we all have our own money stories that come from childhood and just different experiences we have. And I'm obsessed, again, with the Enneagram. So anytime I work with my clients, I always start with, what is your personality? What are your core fears, your core desires, your longings? How do you operate when you're in a healthy state, when you're in an unhealthy state, when you're kind of, flying by the seat of your pants? Because we're going to bring that into your financial plan. We're going to, go into that, because I have one of my clients. It's a very strong Enneagram 7, if you all are into the Enneagram or not. But this is like the fun-loving type. So if I came to him with like this color-coded, beautiful spreadsheet, which would totally like rock my socks, he's going to look at me like, no, I'm not doing this. But one of their core motivations is having options and freedom. So I phrase everything we do in regards to budgeting, taxes, investing, looking at the cash flow in the business, the cash flow on the personal side, from the lens of, this is giving you options. It's giving you freedom, right? We're getting this insurance policy because it gives you the freedom to go out and do what you need to do and not put the rest of your stuff in jeopardy if you fall off a mountain, right? So that's kind of how I approach it. So really understand how you do it, because some people will say, oh, I'm just not good with money. It's like, everybody can be good at money. You just have to understand how you operate with money.
Yeah. How can you tailor it for your personality and your mindset, and then talking about numbers in that way? That makes sense.
And realizing that whatever it is that you want to accomplish, you can do it. Even if nobody around you has done it, you haven't seen anybody do it. Like, what's possible for others is possible for you.
Yeah. You just have to work towards it. Put a lot of work into it.
Absolutely.
But it's achievable. That's awesome. So I know everybody listening wants to get in touch with you. How can they work with you, reach out, talk to you? Share your links.
So everything, the hub of all things, is wealthyandfulfilled.com. And hopefully you'll have that in the show notes, because I'm getting over a cold here. But wealthyandfulfilled.com, that's the link to our Facebook group. You can get our Wealth Building Superpower freebie. And then you also can learn and apply for our Wealthy and Fulfilled Blueprint, which is our group coaching experience, where not only do you get the course, but you also get private feedback. You get weekly calls. Like, it's pretty epic.
That is amazing. And Portia, you are fabulous. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through all of these ways to organize your finances as a new entrepreneur.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, Blair. It's been a blast.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Curate Your Success podcast today. I am so excited that we got to spend time together. Want more? Hop on over to curateyoursuccesspodcast.com for show notes, all the links mentioned, and discount codes from today's episode. And if you loved today's episode, like, subscribe, share it with a friend. I'd be so grateful. Until next time, keep making moves to curate your success.